All right, good evening, everyone, and good morning to those listening in the United States. This is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, and we're very excited. This week is the beginning of our daily show. We're going to be on Sunday through Friday here in the land of Israel. We're going to give a lot of interesting topics, things that are not always covered by mainstream media, and I'm very, very excited to start this endeavor here on Israel National Radio. And this program is very, very special. Our guest today is the communications director of Rescue Christians, and we're going to tell everybody about this. It's a sad story of what happened, but it's a good story of what's being done. On the line right now, Theodore Shobeat, who again is the communications director of Rescue Christians. Theodore, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, sir.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Rescue Christians because, as I said to you before the show started off the air, I don't think CNN or mainstream media is reporting on what exactly is going on in Pakistan with this crisis. So tell us a bit about it.
Sure. Well, there are literally around 20,000 people in Pakistan who are Christians and are slaves. And what happens is that they become slaves to these brick kilns that are ran by Muslim employers, and they own them as slaves. And usually what happens is that the Christians are very poor and they want to maybe buy a house or something, and they get a loan from somebody. Well, they can't really pay that loan, so what they do is they make them work in these brick kilns until they get enough money to pay the loan. I'll give you one example. There was somebody who owed a Muslim $100, and he worked in the brick kiln for how long? 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Just to repay $100. And our team in Pakistan, we have a team in Pakistan that is very well connected, and they, just to tell you guys, just some of the things that we do, we put them in a car, we drive them out of the brick kiln. We tell them, okay, meet us at this time, and we drive them into safe houses. In occasions, we take them across the border, and sometimes we take them into different countries. We do whatever we can to rescue these people. Many times we buy them out. We pay the loan ourselves just to free them. Just to give you guys an example of the horrific abuse, there was a girl that we rescued recently. Her name was Saba Masih. We actually conducted an interview of her to discuss her experience as a slave and her rescue. You can watch that on Shobeat.com, actually. It's right there in the front. And she... just to give you guys the horror that this girl experienced, she was taken by 5 or 6 different men every day, and she was raped for several hours. On one occasion, she was raped for up to 6 hours, and she was also beaten horrifically. And we had our team meet her at the brick kiln, put her and her family in the car, and drive her off. And she is now in a safe house. We have her interview, and she discusses her experience. We also had another story. The most horrific one that we dealt with was the case of a girl named Tanya Rebecca. And if anyone doesn't believe me, they can look her name up, and you'll see her interview discussing what horrors she experienced. She was not a slave, but she was kidnapped by her supposed Muslim friends that she was going to school with. They took her to a mosque and brought her into a small room, and they said that you will now marry this man, and the man was sitting there in the room, and you will convert to Islam and the imam came and brought in a certificate of marriage and said you are officially Muslim, and they gave her a hijab to wear. She said that she refused to convert to Islam, so they beat her up horrifically, and they sold her as a sex slave to another man. And this man would take her and this is not just for one day, this is for a matter of weeks, take her to a tree, tie her with a rope around that tree, and then burn her body with cigarettes. And this is multiple men doing this. Lacerate her body with small blades, and then anally rape her over and over again. Multiple men doing this, by the way. And this was, and then it gets worse than that, much worse than that. The men become, I guess, I don't know if you want to say, sexually dissatisfied with her. And one of them pulls out a blade, her owner pulls out a blade, and they carve an extra hole on her anus, and they rape her through that. Now, I know this sounds so horrific. I know there's some people who don't believe me when I tell them the story. But this example was so horrific. We left this part out of the report that we made. But I'm telling you this from personal knowledge.
Oh, wow.
And she was psychologically horrified. We had to pay the surgery to get her body fixed, repaired. And she is still traumatized till this day. Her name is Tanya Rebecca. And this is the kind of horror that these Christian women go on. And there's many things out there that does not really get reported in the media. There's many things. I mean, we hear about beheadings and destruction of churches and some of the persecutions that have taken place in Mosul by ISIS. But there's many things that don't go reported. And this is some of the examples that don't.
Now, I want to talk about the issue first. So many questions, obviously, of what just you described, but this is going on in Pakistan. Does the Pakistani government know about this? And if they so, are they ignoring it, trying to help? What's the government's involved with this horrible situation?
That's a good question. The Pakistani government, there are many secular elements within the Pakistani government that does not want jihadism or Sharia government. Pakistan originally was established as a secular government. It was only later really transformed into an Islamic nation, into the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But nonetheless, you have the Pakistani security agency, which is like the CIA of that country. It's called ISI. They are many of them are pro-Sharia. Many of them are pro-jihad. And they don't want these stories. And this is why we have to keep a very tight protocol in our mission. Because of the Pakistani government. We have to, when we put our victims in safe houses, for example, we make sure that they're very secure, very secret. Why? Because the Pakistani government is extremely wearisome of people leaking this sort of information out, of the type of persecutions. Remember the story, for example, of I want to say this couple that was burned alive. I don't know if you remember or read the news about that, but a couple of weeks ago there was a couple that was. This is a perfect example. There were slaves. People who don't believe us when I talk about the slaves in the brick kilns. Well, this story came out of a couple who were slaves in a brick kiln, and they were Christian, and they were condemned of blasphemy or accused of blasphemy. It was most likely false. Even if it was true, it doesn't merit this sort of cruelty. And they, a whole mob of Muslims came, and they took this couple and they threw them in the oven for the bricks. They were cooked alive. Yes, cooked alive. Their legs were broken, so they couldn't run away, and they were cooked alive. This was a fact that came out. But did the Pakistani government really do anything to prevent this? No. The Pakistani government did make several arrests and things of that sort. But are they going to make serious measures to further prevent this sort of violence, prevent this sort of fanaticism? No. We actually had one case where we were dealing with a Christian who was accused of blasphemy, and the imams. You have to understand, it's not just a few people in the country; it's the entire society. It's over 90% of the entire society is for this sort of thing. Where it's not just a mob comes and kills you. It takes preparation for this sort of thing. They are imams in the area that you're in who will preach to their people to kill you. It's the imams of the whole society in the congregation will teach their congregations to go out and slaughter these people, go out and kill Christians. And Pakistan is getting much worse as the days go by because you had a politician recently. His name is Altaf. He is one of the more righteous, I guess, politicians in Pakistan. And he is in the city of it's the biggest city in Pakistan. It's not Islamabad. When it comes to my mind, I'll tell you. I forgot.
Sure.
But he has stated very explicitly that he has seen the black flags of ISIS right there around the area of Islamabad. And who do you have? Oh, Karachi, that's the city. who do you have surrounding Islamabad right now? The perimeters of Islamabad. You have Taliban. Who will pledge allegiance to ISIS? The Taliban. Who has entered into Pakistan? ISIS. ISIS has entered into Pakistan. They have many Pakistanis who are in support of Sharia, and they are in the surrounding areas of Islamabad. And they have seen, there have been reports from the government saying we have seen ISIS flags around Islamabad. And so here you have the Taliban surrounding Islamabad. And what we think is that pretty soon you're going to see major violence taking place. Calculated, organized violence. Not just the mob violence that we've been seeing recently, but organized, consistent, calculated violence from the Taliban working with ISIS. And they're going to try to do several things. One, they're going to try to take over Islamabad. In other words, the type of violence that you saw in Syria, where you have civil war, where you have ISIS, and you have al-Nusra Brigade, and you have FSA, and you have Ahmed Amun, and all of these different brigades working together to destroy the government, and the government military is fighting with them to kind of try to keep order. You're going to see the same sort of violence in Pakistan, but it's going to be much worse. Because in Syria, at least you have, let's say, maybe a fair amount of so-called moderates who don't want Sharia law. Same thing with Iraq. But in Pakistan, 90% of the population want Sharia. 90% of the population want jihad, Sharia law. And there is tremendous amount of support from ISIS in Pakistan. Not just in Pakistan, but also in India. There was a story that came out in India where they had to arrest several people in India because they were wearing ISIS t-shirts, openly supporting ISIS. So it's, and also you will see the Taliban and ISIS trying to destroy the city of Karachi. Karachi is the biggest city in Pakistan. The entire nation of Karachi lives off the economy, the entire nation of Pakistan lives off the nation of Karachi. This is the city of Karachi. So what will happen is there's going to be so much violence taking place in Karachi, it's going to truly effectively damage the economy of Pakistan.
Again, you're listening to Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio. You can email me personally at messiahhour@gmail.com. We're going to continue this conversation. So many more questions to talk about with this situation. Theodore, when these imams are preaching in their mosque or what have you, they're quoting things from the Quran, I imagine, and a lot of people listening, they know there are certain things in the Quran that can incite people, but they don't know exact verses. A lot of people listening to this program never read the Quran. What exactly are these imams saying? Are they saying a particular verse to incite people to go after the infidels, something like that? What are they saying to get all these people to commit murder?
Well, in regards to killing Christians, there's a perfect example of that. It's in the 9th chapter of the Quran, which states an explicit declaration of war against Christians and Jews. And it says in that verse, it says that the Jews say that the prophet, I believe it's the prophet, not Elisha, I don't remember the exact prophet. Oh, I think it's Nehemiah, I believe. But it says that the Jews say that this prophet is the Son of God. And then it says that the Christians say that Jesus is the Son of God. And then it says their priests and their monks are the ones who spew out these lies, it says. And it's talking about the Christian priests and monks. And it says that these monks and priests are all liars, and they're just greedy and they want money. And before that, it states very specifically, it says, fight the infidels until they declare Allah as their God, until they believe in this prophet, and until they believe in the last day. But this is a specific declaration of war, an injunction to violence to Christians, because it says after that, they say that Christ is the Son of God. You have to understand one thing about Islamic history. Islam did not just come as a result of some guy who wanted power. I mean, you could make that argument and you would be right, but it's more intricate than that. Islam really came as a result of a theological disagreement, a theological struggle. You have to understand, around the 4th century, there was a huge controversy in Christian history about the divinity of Jesus Christ. Is Jesus Christ divine? The Orthodox Christian Church say that Jesus Christ is truly divine. He is the second member of the Holy Trinity. And then you had something called the Arians. And the Arians were people who rejected the Trinity, said that Jesus Christ was just a creation, he was not divine. This caused a huge war, literally a war, that lasted for a while in the Byzantine Empire. The Orthodox eventually crushed the Arians, and many of the Arians went off into Saudi Arabia. There was an Arian monk who met with Muhammad, who was a pagan, and he learned the Arian heresy from him. And Muhammad becomes an Arian. He becomes a Unitarian, rejection of the Trinity. And he begins to start a following. It is on this heresy, on this idea that Christ is not divine, that Islam is built. So that is why in the Quran it says that God is not begotten, nor does he beget. God would never be crucified. In fact, it says that Christ was never crucified. And Muhammad even said, I come to kill those who say that God begets and is begotten, meaning that God has a son and that he is one with the son. So many people don't think, they think that Muhammad just came in and just wanted to kill people. Well, it began as a theological disagreement. And he wanted to really reform the Catholic Church into accepting his heresy, into his view of God. And that really, when you read about the Crusades and you read about all of these wars that were fought between Muslim and Catholic, it was really fought over a theological issue, over the Holy Trinity, over the Nicene Creed. And Muhammad says that Jesus Christ is not God. That is idolatry. And the Catholics said he is. And the Muslims began to conquer Christian lands and destroy churches and say that these Christians are idolaters. In fact, it says right specifically in several Muslim writings that Christians are idolaters. In fact, when the FSA or when ISIS or when al-Nusra takes over a Christian village, one of the first things they tell people is reject the idolatry of Christianity. You guys are polytheists. In fact, when Boko Haram kidnapped those 300 or so Chibok girls, well, majority of those girls were Christians. And there was a story where one of the Boko Haram jihadists told one of the girls that you are polytheists. You worship 3 gods. And the girl said, no, you don't understand the concept of the Holy Trinity. And he took a stick and he almost beat her to death. So people don't realize the theological hatred, the theological struggle, all the theological and religious intricacies that are involved. It's not just some guy who wanted multiple wives. It's somebody who wants to establish an ideology. And until we realize that it's an ideology that we're dealing with, it's not just a bunch of thugs. And also, for example, in the Hadith, there is a very interesting passage in the Hadith that a lot of people don't really know about. When Abu Bakr, the successor of Muhammad, invades Syria, which was Christian at that time, wasn't Muslim like it is today. And before he invades Syria, he tells his soldiers, when you enter Syria, you will see men who live in hermits, who call themselves monks, and they shave the center of their head. But what's he talking about here? He's talking about the Catholic tonsure. The monks in Catholicism make their head like a crown. They shave their head like a crown to represent the thorns of Christ. And he says, cut these monks' heads off. Well, why? And then he says, then you will meet another form of monk. These monks do not have the tonsure. Spare those. Well, why would he spare the monks without the tonsure, but kill the monks with the tonsure? Because the monks with the tonsure are made their haircut in a way to represent the crown of Christ. Well, the Quran says that Christ was never crucified. And Muhammad says, I come to kill those who believe that he was crucified. So it's really a religion that comes to destroy Christianity. In fact, Arut Sheva recently reported that ISIS has made it very clear Christianity is the enemy. When in their magazine, Dabik, they state specifically, we will conquer Rome. We will destroy the Christian cross. Why? Why this fixation? There's more of a fixation on Rome in the Muslim world than America, even, surprisingly enough. Why? Because Rome, at the time of Muhammad, was the center of Western Christianity. And before Muhammad died, he told his followers, he says, you will conquer 2 cities in future. He says, you will conquer Constantinople, and then you will conquer Rome. So for hundreds of years, the Muslims were trying to invade Constantinople, all the way down in the 8th century. Muawiyah, one of the Muslim warlords, he tried to invade Constantinople and he failed. And then in the year 1453, Mehmet II, one of the great heroes of Islamic history, all of the Muslim world loves Mehmet II, because he invaded Constantinople and he went into the Hagia Sophia and he removed all the crosses in the Hagia Sophia and he made it into a mosque. He removed all of the Christian icons. Why? Because these are idols. Christians worship idols. Again, it goes back to that theological difference, that theological struggle. And then after he invaded Constantinople, he said, I will now build my horses' stables in St. Peter's Basilica. Why? Because Muhammad said we will invade first Constantinople and then Rome. Well, they failed. Mehmet II tried to conquer Rome and he failed. He invaded Otranto and he told all the Catholics to convert to Islam. About around, I would say, 25,000 or maybe even more than that, 1,000 Catholics were killed. Their throats were slit because they refused to reject the Holy Trinity. And the Bishop of Otranto was arrested and he was told to convert to Islam in the church he was praying at, and he refused, and they cut him in half alive. But then the Queen of Spain, Isabella and Fernando, sent their ships into Otranto, and together with the Italians, they defeated the Turks.
Okay, that concludes part 1 of my interview with Theodore Shoebat here on Is It Prophecy, Israel National Radio. The show is also on YouTube under Messiah Hour. And a reminder, the email is messiahhour@gmail.com. This show is supported and continues and thrives due to listeners just like yourself. If you feel the need or you feel the desire to give a donation to help support this program, you can do so at our PayPal account, israelsportsradio@yahoo.com. Again, PayPal, israelsportsradio@yahoo.com. This show goes based on listeners just like yourself, so if you can support, that'd be fantastic. Again, messiahhour@gmail.com if you want to write to me about anything or to take a break. And on the other side is part 2 of my interview with Theodore Shoebat. This is It Prophecy on IsraelNationalRadio.com.